Kevin Warsh has cleared the major hurdle in the confirmation process. The Senate Banking Committee voted along party lines to advance his nomination as Fed chair. That set the stage for a full Senate vote. He's expected to prevail. He's very surprised if he didn't make it. There have been some bumps in the road. Republican Tom Tillis previously said he would block Warsh's nomination until the Justice Department dropped its investigation into Powell, and now that has happened. Loretta Mester is the former president of the Cleveland Fed. Let's do this bit by bit, if we may. I'm guessing that you're not surprised that he's staying on as governor, bearing in mind the wider position. But the same question to you as I asked Matt Egan. How does him staying on as governor help the situation?
Well, I think he made a point of saying that he really wanted to see the transition. And, he's worried about the independence of the institution. He does see it at risk. And I think, in weighing the pros and cons of staying, I think one of the cons was, it'll be looking at like there's two chairs. And he made it clear he has no intention of that. The court case was dropped by DOJ, but dropped with a caveat that they could resume it at any time if justified. They shifted it over to the Fed IG, which ironically, Chair Powell had already asked the IG to investigate. So that investigation is already going on. So I can imagine if that comes back and, as I expect it will, finds no grounds for a criminal proceeding, the DOJ can then say, okay, it's done. And that'll be another step towards giving reassurance that there won't be another criminal case. So again, I think there's some more steps along the way here. And that's why I don't really perceive that he has an intention of staying the full 2 years that he could stay. I think it's just for a time to make sure that these proceedings get really resolved in his transparent and fully resolved way.
So now let's look at the decision today. The actual decision to remain, to hold rates, that was not a surprise. But we are now getting a disagreement, and quite a strong disagreement, on the wording used and the direction and the guidance to be used, with a preference now to move away from this idea. There was a forceful minority for wanting wording that moves away from the idea that the next move will be a cut.
Agreed. And it sounds like even amongst the non-voters, there was a group that would have preferred that they go to that more even balance between cuts and increases as being a possible next move. So I think that just reflects what's going on in the economy. We've seen a lot of data that suggests that the real side of the economy, growth and employment, is actually holding up remarkably well, given the pressures on the economy from the war in the Middle East. And we have an inflation problem. We know that. We've seen that in the data, right? We experience it in life. You go to the gas station and you have to pay higher prices. We're seeing it in airfares. So the real focus of the committee is rightfully on the inflation part of the mandate at this point. And I think there was a growing constituency that said, well, our language in the statement has been used in the past to signal that the next move is likely to be a cut. And we don't feel that that necessarily is where we are today. So I think there is a growing group that really wants to move that. I think the other thing that it shows is that I think Kevin Warsh is correct in that they need to really improve communication, because the average person reading that statement wouldn't have got that necessarily is a bias towards a next rate cut. I think the average person reading it would say, it looks evenly balanced. So again, they're using code words to signal rather than speaking what they really see. And I think that's a problem.
Look, the nature of the job is going to be uncertain, in the sense that you can't be definitive about what you're going to do. You've got to be data dependent. The moment you're data dependent, everybody's reading the data to read what they want into it. I'm not suggesting we go back to Alan Greenspan's speak, or Fed speak, where we had no idea. In a sense, the obscure was considered to be the majesty of the process. But there has to be a balance, or maybe there isn't. Maybe we are destined and doomed for this.
No, we're not doomed. We're not destined or doomed. look, the committee could do a better job, in my view, of explaining how they're reading the data. Tell us what they think the data is telling us as, the committee view, and tell us what that means for where the stance of policy is likely to be going. And then tell us, look, if things work out differently, and suppose that the inflation that we're seeing from the oil price starts getting more embedded in other parts of the economy, then we're going to have to be reacting to that. I don't think that's insurmountable. And I think they could do a good job of bringing that in. The press conference statements actually are quite good about that. And I think they could do that better as a committee.
I'm grateful for you joining us. Something tells me you and I will be talking a lot over the course of the year as we try and work out exactly what a president or chair Warsh actually means, and particularly if he's still going to do half of what he says he's going to do. Good to see you, Loretta. Thank you very much for joining us. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Take care, Richard.